Hello and welcome in to any of you that are gathered here now, and also to you men. This is the men's gathering that I offer once a month, the fourth Friday of every month. And for those of you just watching later, welcome in. I want to speak to something that means a lot to me. I have 5 boys. I've raised 6 children, of which 5 are boys. And so thinking back on how I raised my children, specifically my boys, to feel their feelings, I wish that I could go back and get a do-over in how I prepared them or not to be able to feel safe in their own body, to feel their feelings, to be fully human. So it feels like a gift in some ways to be able to speak to this in this sort of container where there are men of different ages that actually are interested in having access to this information and being able to put it into practice. So most men were raised like like I was. We were raised by the silent generation, by parents and grandparents that did not talk about their feelings, their emotions, about what felt hard or scary or painful, the trauma that they'd endured in their lives. They just did not have the resources or the time really to do so. But now we do. And we're talking about it and it's shifting things. I can feel it. And it makes me so excited for the future generations and what they know now and how they can be in a different relationship with the deepest essence of themselves, which is our emotions. It's when we are allowing emotions to energy in motion is emotion. And when we allow that energy to come in and not be shut down or dismissed or ignored, then we're actually living. We're being fully human because we're here to gather the wisdom that we can when we're able to feel our emotions. That's why we're here. So, at least that's my lived experience has brought me to now where I do really feel like we are here, we are meant to feel all of it, not just the great parts that we want to cling to, but all of the things that we consider messy or difficult or unfeelable. When we finally allow ourselves to do that, we're coming in contact with the closest, most intimate parts of ourselves. And when we're able to do that, then we are able to go outside of ourselves and connect with other. So, um, I'm going to just start by talking about something I heard in Qigong last week. And I spoke to the women last week in our free gathering about this concept. And it is, if you don't like it, it meaning whatever is showing up in your life, in your reality, if you don't like it, reorganize it and bring it back into harmony, alignment. How to do that is by the small act of staying with your emotions when they come up and not running. I am the buffalo queen, and when I heard the phenomenon of the buffalo out in nature actually facing storms rather than running from them like cattle, it struck such a deep chord in me because it brought to my awareness. Suddenly, I became increasingly aware, and I'm so grateful that I was. It kind of cracked me open to ask the question, am I like the cattle or the buffalo? And in all honesty, I had to admit that I had been running from all of my emotions and all of the things that felt gross and unfeelable in my life. And there was a lot. So to take the theme of the buffalo, who actually turn towards the storm, gather in their strength, their herd, and walk or run into the storm, somehow innately knowing that they're going to end up on the other side of the storm quicker because they faced it. We are part of nature. We're not in nature. We are nature. Just like the buffalo, that lives in us too. Somehow innately, we do know if we will face our storms, not just the outer storms, it must be our inner storms first. Because if there's a war in here, I promise you, there's a war out there. So if you don't like your reality, reorganize what's going on in here, sit with, be with what's coming in here, and bring it back into harmony. So when we start doing that, it gets easier and easier to feel safe in our bodies, to trust that we can feel all of our feelings and we're safe to do so. That's a game changer for all of us if we're willing to do it. So I want to speak to that just really quick, that what are we coming back into alignment? What are we bringing back into harmony? When we believe that, here's a good example. When we fall in love with someone, and I've said this before, but if you haven't heard it, it's a good reminder that when we are in those first stages of meeting someone and falling in love, it's so beautiful. And somehow we are taught that this person in front of us is making us feel a certain way. Oh, I'm so in love with them and they make me feel this way. I'm so grateful I met this person. When actually, nobody, nothing outside of us can actually make us feel something that doesn't already exist within us. So when we feel anger or pain or righteous indignation, those states of being, those feelings, those emotions are here. They start here first and they don't exist outside of us, but we'll give the credit to someone, whether it's good or bad, until we understand, oh, the love that I'm feeling actually exists here first. And this person in front of me, they are a clear mirror reflecting back to me what exists here. So if it's anger, if someone is inciting anger in us or rage, be still and be prepared to understand. Guess what? That feeling, they can't make me feel it unless it existed here first. I've told the story about the empty boats, how there's a Buddhist meditating out in the middle of a lake, and he's so in bliss and in peace, and something comes to bump his boat and disturb his peace. Before he opens his eyes, he's ready to unleash his anger on this person who came and dare disrupt his peace. And when he opened his eyes, he noticed it was an empty boat. The boat was empty, and yet he was still angry. Can he be angry at an empty boat? Yes, you can. You can be angry at anything that comes in and blame them for what you are feeling. But the moment of awareness and enlightenment came to this monk because he realized, oh my goodness, that anger lived here. An empty boat caused me to get triggered into anger. And so it is with every emotion that we have. If we are in harmony and alignment with love rather than fear, that's how we come back into the center of and the truth of who we be. Our true nature is not fear. Our true nature is love and harmony and peace. So if we're not in that state of being, the best question to ask is, what took me out or off of my center, away from my inner peace, the love that I am, the abundance and the wisdom that lives here when we start to trust ourselves to be able to change what we don't like. If we don't like what's going on out there, we don't go up to a mirror and start trying to change. If I have like a zit on my face, I'm not going to look in the mirror and try to fix it there. I can only ever fix it here first. Does that make sense? If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. So reorganizing life out here by first organizing it here is the key. Life isn't something that wants to be endured. It can be reshaped if we believe that we are the ones who create our reality. And that's a whole other discussion in quantum physics, which I've spoken to a lot. So I'm not going to go deep into here because there's so many other things that I want to speak to. So when we realize that time is relative and all we ever have is now, presence, right now, then every single now moment becomes our power if we're willing to choose. Will I feed fear, my ego, or will I realign with the love that I am, which is not ego, not trying to defend or protect our identity or who we think we are and what we deserve, instead of just stepping into the love that we are and realigning with that. So in every now moment, we have the power literally to choose love. And harmony does not exist outside of us. It's literally a frequency because it's energy and we bring it to any situation. So what will we choose? Another thing that one of my teachers, Peter Crone, teaches so brilliantly and so succinctly is that repetition of thoughts and feelings that don't serve us, that keep us looping in fear, is not evolution. So repetition isn't evolution. If we are hoping to evolve and grow and learn from the wisdom of our emotions, we must be willing to stop looping and believing that we're stuck and a victim of our emotions and start choosing love. He talks about three of the core lies that we come to believe before we know better when we're really young. And they are a version of these three. And I'm going to speak to them and I'm going to ask you if you have ever felt one of these three or something like unto it. And the three are I am not safe. And if I am not safe, then the world is not safe, right? Because if I'm not safe here, then out here, what is reflecting back to me, my reality is that the world isn't safe. So I'm not safe. When it starts here as a belief, everything will feel unsafe. The second one is I am not worthy. I am not deserving of abundance or wealth or connection or any of that. And that is a lie. If we are suffering in any way, believing that we are not worthy or deserving, we are feeling separate from the thing we actually are. And that's okay because it's part of the curriculum of why we come here to be human is to experience what we're not in order to remember what we are and what we truly be. The third one is I am not capable. There's a lot of time spent swirling and repeating these subconscious beliefs. But when we can shine the light of awareness onto those shadowy aspects of ourselves and be like, is it true that the world is unsafe or that I'm not safe in this world? Or did I come to believe that because XYZ happened when I was younger? Or is it true that I'm not worthy or deserving of love and connection? Is it impossible for me to be disconnected from the truest essence of me, which is love, which is one with everything? And then I am not capable. And so we stay stuck in patterns of procrastination or self-doubt, believing that, and actually, this is a sticky one too, because sometimes we'll look outside of us and see other people not believing that lie, and they are living in abundance and living in love and living their best lives, right? And we will judge them or say, oh, I can't do that, or they're better, they're different somehow than me, and I'm not able to do what they do. And can you see all the different layers of these repetitive ways to believe and suffer that we are victims of life instead of the creator of our own reality, which is when we can go and clean up those old subconscious below our awareness beliefs that keep us stuck living in patterns of not safe, not worthy, and not capable. When those can be cleaned up and cleared up by actually turning towards them and getting really clear on when we came to believe that and why that isn't true, how it can't be true. because our true nature is safety and peace and worthiness and abundance and limitless. We are unlimited in our ability to create the life that we want if we believe. It's all the power of belief. So when we are repeating those old thoughts, we are stuck. Literally, it creates damnation, stagnation, and we are living in yesterday's loop of thoughts and projecting that fear and pain onto our tomorrow. So, true evolution and coming into contact with our truest self is stepping out of repetition and back into presence, which is now. Okay. Buddha tells a story of the the second arrow. And the first arrow is just life. Life happens. And yes, there is pain in this life, and it's a curriculum, and it's messy, and it feels heavy. Yes, I'm not going to deny that. Yes. But the second arrow that he speaks to is the suffering that we create by repeating the same story over and over, piercing ourselves again and again. Repetition of old errors in thinking, lies, is the second arrow. And evolution, our evolution and our ability to create a new reality is literally putting the bow down and saying, I'm going to let those past beliefs actually not pull me back to them anymore. And I'm going to live my best life now because I can choose love over ego every now moment. Um, so I want to ask you men, what how did you learn to feel your emotions growing up? Did you ever see a man or a woman modeling for you how to manage your emotions, how to sit with them, the highs and the lows? And also, what is your particular prescription for numbing out and avoiding feeling? We all have it. We all have our own version because we're human and there's no shame in that. We can't get it wrong and we've never made a mistake. How would that feel in your body if you could actually believe that to be true? Because time is relative. There isn't anyone more evolved or ahead of us or behind us. There's no one to judge. It just is all happening right now in different dimensions of time. And since it's all happening right now, every possibility of our lived experience, we're only experiencing what we believe to be true. So if we subconsciously, below our awareness, believe that we're not safe, we're not worthy, or we're not capable, can you see how that reality would create a lot of suffering? But if we start to believe that we are that powerful to create a new reality, if we're that powerful to create that much suffering, can you see that that is good news? Because then we can say, wait a minute, then I am that powerful to create the reality that I desire to live in. And I can clean up the old shit, the old beliefs that never were true, but were part of my curriculum to experience, so I can step into my wholeness, which is love and abundance and peace and ease and simplicity and compassion for myself, all the versions of myself that ever came to believe that I was something other than all the truth. So, if you can be radically self-responsible and transparent and honest with yourself and say, how are the ways that I numb out? If I had to speak to that, the ways, I'm sure there are still blind spots that I'm not aware of that I still numb out by doing. But the two ones that where I lived so long in my life without even knowing I was doing those things, those behaviors, they were just kind of embedded in me. It was people pleasing. It was saying yes when I meant no. And every time I said yes to someone else, I was saying no to me on some level, energetically. And it was a form, very subtle, of self-abandonment and betrayal. And even though I was blaming things outside of me for betraying me, my greatest sadness that I wasn't even aware of was my own self-betrayal. And when I started to get more clear on owning my own participation in my own suffering, that things started to shift and change. I wasn't blaming myself anymore for abandoning myself. I gave so much compassion to the versions of me. Of course, I came to be a people pleaser and a perfectionist. I saw the people in my life living that way, and nobody ever said it. It was just kind of unspoken that this was my way of adapting to how I grew up in my family, in my culture, in my religion, my community. Everybody will have a different version of that. And people pleasing and perfectionism were highly celebrated in my world. And so my lived experience was experimenting with what I'm not, a people pleaser and a perfectionist. I'm not those things. I don't want to be those things because I saw how much it was creating a version of me that was not real. I said yes when I meant no. And then I resented all of so much of things that were going on in my life. I had resentment, even though I had a smile on my face. So I was shoving down my emotion, my energy that wanted to come through and say, pay attention to how that feels in your body. Is it true that you really want to help them with that? Or is it true that you're really available to help with that, or do that, or say that, or be that way? And if I could slow down and check in with my body, check in with my ego. Jay Shetty says in Think Like a Monk, I love this. He says there's always four intentions behind why we do something. It's either love or fear, duty or desire. I would break it down to be more simple, love or fear. Are we acting out of our ego? Ego would say, well, I have to say yes, because if I don't say yes, then they're going to think I'm not a very generous person to help. But if you are depleted and exhausted, then you're giving from what? Is it more duty out of my ego saying, well, what would they think if I don't help or I don't say yes to this? So when we can be true to ourselves and literally say, no, I'm not available for that right now. I can ask again because I want to say yes, but I want to be able to say yes and really mean it out of not duty or fear, but out of love and desire. I would love to say yes. So ask again, and I'm for sure going to be in that place because now I'm being honest with myself. And there won't be resentment when I say yes, because it will come from an authentic place, an authentic yes. It's very different than an inauthentic yes. And an authentic no, no is a sentence. You can say, no, I'm not available for that. And if we've been saying yes so often, no can feel like violence, but it's not. It's actually, I call it the noble threshold. It's not so much a boundary as much as what am I available for? Boundaries aren't to keep people out. It's actually to protect our energy. Our energy is a currency. If we're just leaking it out everywhere by saying yes without being honest, then what are we doing? What are we really doing? Okay. So I want to talk about the difference between male and female embodiment. So women's embodiment is often expressed. We hear a lot about women dancing and moving to release, and we have movement and sound and tears, and we are moving that feeling through us because it's a very feminine way to move energy through. Men's embodiment tends to be more about containment and being grounded and direct action. It's more yang in its movement than yin. Yin movement is inner, it's flowing, it's creative, right? It would love to have a safe container within to move, which is why the polarity of masculine and feminine energy is so beautiful when it's whole and conscious rather than wounded. So back to men's embodiment, that direct action that comes from that conscious, not wounded masculine energy is less about catharsis and more about presence. Men often need safety in the structure before they can let their feelings come up, whereas women often need permission to let structure go and just be able to flow. Because Women and men have been living in wounded feminine and masculine energy for so long. It's really tricky to know what conscious masculine and feminine energy actually feels like. We've only seen modeled mostly wounded masculine and feminine energy. So what a gift for a woman to give herself permission to feel and flow, and for a man to feel safe, to ground in and allow their emotions to rise up. That old saying, big boys don't cry, never served anyone. Our tears are literally the emotion, the energy, the chemicals that got stored in our body when trauma is feelings unfelt. If we have never been able to feel our emotions properly and let them move through us, they get stuck and they become chemicals, cortisol, stress in our bodies that create dis-ease. So when we allow ourselves to cry, male or female, we're literally releasing the chemicals of our trauma once and for all. Have you ever allowed yourself to cry and then felt afterwards that I feel so good? It's like a clean slate sometimes. There's so much heaviness we carry, and when we allow the emotion to move through us and come out as tears, as emotion, it's such a gift to our bodies. So here are some practical ways for men to feel and move emotion. The first one is our breath. And in meditative practices, this is the first anchor that we call an anchor. It's our breath. It's free, it's always with us, and we can't breathe in the past or the future. So to be with our breath right now and anchor in, guess what? We're suddenly present. We're here right now. That's our power. Now we can choose love over fear. So slowing down and breathing deeply, especially like a deep belly breath, bringing up that air, that stagnant air through our diaphragm, up into our lungs, and then breathing like this, consciously, slowly, is bringing our nervous system back into the parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. It's out of the limbic breathing, which is like scattered and shallow when we're living in fight or flight mode. And even a simple box breath, if you're like, well, I need something to anchor in that's more steady, where I'm really, because sometimes we can, they say every 10 to 15 seconds, we're going to have a thought and it takes us out of whatever we're anchoring into. So if we're breathing, maybe doing a simple box breath, which is 4, 4, 4, 4. It's like inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold at the bottom for 4. And that's a good start. If you have questions about that, I'm happy to talk more about that. There's different ways to breathe that bring different results even, but the box breathing is the easiest to remember, and it keeps you, as you start to think, you're like, oh, thinking, and you come back to your breath. And it's not that you become the best meditator or breather. It's that every time it's what you're doing when you're practicing breathing and sitting in a meditative state, anchoring into presence, that when you are aware of your thoughts and come back to presence, you're creating a new neural pathway. It's called neuroplasticity, epigenetics. It's really great that we know now that our brains can grow even as we get older. We can train our mind to do new things. It's lovely. Back in the day, they said, oh, yeah, once you reach a certain age, that's it. It's not true. Okay. So every time you are aware of thought and you come back to presence, you are creating a new neural pathway of presence. And that, after a few weeks of practicing, becomes your new normal. So now it's not that you're the greatest breather or meditator, it's that you take that practice into the flow of your life. And now when you're swirling in anxiety or people pleasing or whatever it is, your go-to thing, and numbing out, scrolling, the death scroll on social media or whatever, you can be like, oh my gosh, I'm elsewhere. I'm not present. And you come back to presence in your life. And that becomes your new default. And suddenly you have a new way to be in relationship with yourself and all of life. That war that's going on in here, It's actually settling down. The dust can settle when you can be more present and stop believing that your thoughts are true, that I'm not good enough, or I'm not capable, or I'm not safe. Does that make sense? So another way to be more present and to move emotion through you is to ground in through your body, to stand with your feet like hip width apart, your knees slightly bent, and feel the weight of your body, gravity sinking into the ground. And actually imagine roots extending down, down, down into the soil, the earth, or even wherever you are, standing on the ground in a building even. Imagine roots going down, and this stabilizes your body so those emotions can come, they can rise up without feeling overwhelming. Also, using sound, a low humming or a sighing, or even vocal toning like a growl or using a in Qigong, we use that as we like bring up energy, bring it down, bring it up from Mother Earth, bring it down from the sky, which is more masculine, right? And then releasing with a sigh. That is a way to release stuck emotions. And you don't need language because a lot of men get stuck in needing language to speak their truth or to release trauma. That is not so. You can release so much without needing language. Do what feels natural. Even if you want to let out like this growl, this primal noise that releases the energy of trauma and feelings unfelt, go ahead and experiment with all of that. Another way is to use a strong but safe movement, like push against a wall, do slow push-ups, or stomp on the ground. Physical exertion for men channels emotions like anger and frustration that may feel overwhelming into a safe embodied release. Does that make sense? And some men may not admit that this feels yummy, but even just placing your hand over your heart and naming what you feel in one word. This is a practice that I use with men quite often in my practice as a therapist is, you can do this while you're driving. I do it all the time. If I'm starting to feel emotion, if I'm driving with one hand, I'll put my other hand on my heart and I'll name what I'm feeling. There's grief, right? Or there is rage. And I can let that out. And sometimes it actually ends up being funny and I end up laughing because I'll growl or do something in my car and I'm alone. And then I start laughing because it's funny. It's funny, my emotions. Or I'm scared. Or there is love. And I also invite you to not identify it with I am, because now you're grounding in that I am anger, I am grief, and that's not true. There is. We are here as souls to experience as humans all of these emotions, the full range of it, right? To be human, to be fully human is to feel it all and then gather the wisdom from feeling it all and being fully human. So when I'm willing to feel it all, I can name it as the thing that's coming to move through me. We are part of nature, right? We're not in it. So we watch nature and weather comes and goes. Emotions come and they go. They don't come to stay. So when we can name it, there is anger, there is grief, there is love, there is joy, all of it. That builds emotional literacy and it normalizes direct contact with our feelings. Now we're beginning to feel safer to feel. Does that make sense? We can trust ourselves to be safe, to feel all of the spectrum of emotions that we came here to experience and be okay, that we're gonna be okay. We're safe to feel. Another good thing to try or experiment with is if there's any trusted brotherhood in your life. If you don't have that, I recommend finding a brother, someone, a friend, a dude, to share your feelings out loud without having to explain or fix it. Witnessing someone else's emotions without judgment builds so much safety. for your emotions in a way that most men have never experienced. And it doesn't always have to be in brotherhood. I want to say this too. A lot of men don't have deep male relationships. If you do, hurrah. That is so lovely. I hope you can continue to build and support that in your life. If not, I hope that you can work with your partner, if she's female, to create what the masculine needs in relationship with the feminine is that she will appreciate you. Thank you for being the structure and the stability in this container. And if she can actually hold space for your emotions, right? Where else are you going to go to express your fear, your rage, your anger, your disappointment, your love, your tenderness, your compassion? If she can hold space without judgment for you to feel fully human, keep that partner. Because then when two conscious energies, masculine and feminine, which live in both of us, whether you're cisgender and homosexual or whatever you define yourself as, if you have a partner that has done the work to balance their masculine and feminine energy in a conscious way, they can show up and you can show up in ways that are equal to each other and support each other. And when that is happening, there is a third thing that arrives, and it's energy. And now you are growing and evolving that third thing together that you're building consciously and equally. Does that make sense? When I work with couples and people are coming in and they're blaming other for their suffering and they're not owning their own participation in the discomfort of the coupleship, the lovership, I always say, first and foremost, how could you ever believe that you could be connected to other if you are disconnected from self, far from yourself, and not owning and being responsible for your own emotions? So, okay, that's another story. But being able to have someone in your life that feels safe to trust, to emote without judgment, and have them just hold space for you, that can be so healing, right? And then this last part that often gets overlooked. Once the emotion moves through you, sit, lie, be still, like lie down, be still and integrate. Notice the shift in energy. Our emotions, they say, they don't usually stay longer than 90 seconds, 1.5 minutes. So if you're feeling the rage and the anger and you're allowing it to come and move through you, whether you're grounding in or doing push-ups or growling or holding space for it or speaking it out, it doesn't take that long unless we're clinging to it and living in the loop, the belief that I'm not safe, I'm not safe. Now we're swirling. It could be hours and days and weeks and months that we swirl if we're not aware. But integration is crucial. Noticing, I felt that and now it's gone. Wow, I actually am safe to feel all of it. And this part, men often skip this and they go straight back into their masculine energy of doing, do, go, right? But the key is noticing the shift in the energy and the safety and peace that you can feel after you've allowed it to come and go. Also, I'm going to speak to this. If you are in an actual lovership, if you have ever noticed after sexual intimacy, the gift of the sacred pause, slow down, be still and present with what you just shared with your partner energetically. Yes, physically, emotionally, so many things when it's lovely like that. And it's not just mutual masturbation. We as humans are wired for deep connection. We long for, we crave for emotional intimacy. And when that is taking place, the physical intimacy becomes a sacred container to grow and evolve together and deepen that connection. If that emotional intimacy is lacking, then that physical intimacy ends up being mutual masturbation, where it's an act of self-pleasure with someone else there, helping, witnessing, being there. But if the emotional piece is missing, I invite you to check in with yourself and be very honest. What are we actually doing? If there's no emotional connection, what's happening over here? The beauty of what can happen in physical intimacy when there is a depth that is limitless. Can you imagine going deeper and deeper into physical intimacy? Because the deeper you are emotionally connected, the deeper it's going to happen over here. So be still and present with what just happened energetically in lovership and with yourself. And I'm going to echo what I said before. If you long for connection with other, tend to the connection with self, right? When you are connected deeply here, know thyself, know your emotions, know how you show up, know that you're safe, know that your truest nature is abundance and love and peace, inner peace, harmony right here. When you can slow down and be the one who stays with your emotions, you're unfuckwithable. You're safe with anything. And you're mostly safe with yourself, so you can be safe in relationship with everything and anything else outside of you. Okay, so why feeling your emotions and being safe to feel your emotions matters for men? Because suppressed emotion often shows up as anger, numbness, and disconnection. It's this getting back in your body and being willing to feel it, knowing you're safe enough to feel, teaches that your emotions are not weakness. They actually it's just emotion, like energy moving through you. That's all it is. And your greatest strength is actually being willing to feel, doing the opposite of what you were taught. When men learn to feel without fear, they access more presence, more depth, more authenticity in every single relationship because they gave it here first. I am going to share with you a poem that I was reading just this morning, and I thought, oh, I get to share this with the men. So I invite you to be still while you listen to this and think about what it actually means for you in your life. It's by Fernando Pessoa, who is a Spanish poet that wrote such beautiful, succinct poems. And this one it resonated deeply with me this morning. And I was like, oh, this is what I'm speaking to the men about today. So the name of the poem is To Be Great, Be Whole. To be great, be whole. Don't exaggerate or leave out any part of you. Be complete in each thing. Put all that you are into the least that you do. So too, in each lake, with its lofty life, the whole moon shines. Do we know, are we even aware of how often we hold ourselves back from others? We hold ourselves back from the people that we love. There's so many people who belong to each other and with each other. They are really meant to love each other and be in each other's lives. But because of disappointments with each other or their own woundedness or their lack of trust, they hold themselves so far back from one another as to be practically out of reach with each other, with one another. Wouldn't it be lovely if we could let ourselves go and come in on this wave of trust, so to speak, and fully into the shore of each other's lives, to be present in each other's lives? Because the greatest gift you can ever give anyone is the gift of your whole self. And when I think about time being relative, that all we ever have is right now, I think that all the versions of me, of each one of us, exists right now. So what does that mean? It means that the frequency of our wholeness exists on a dimension of time right now. How do we access that version of ourselves? If it's a frequency, if everything is energy, then what is the energy that I am building in every now moment? Am I choosing fear? Am I choosing to play small and believe that I am not capable or I'm not safe and I'm not worthy? Or do I believe that I am that powerful and that whole already? And that I can tap into that frequency of my wholeness by accepting and loving on and having compassion for all the versions of me still over efforting me, my wholeness. Like I must heal more, I must do more, instead of just realizing, wait, my wholeness exists. How do I tap into her? How would she wake up in the morning? How would your wholeness wake up in the morning? How would he speak to himself? How would he speak to others about himself? What is the inner dialogue that you're telling yourself right now without even being aware of it? How would you dress as your wholest self? What would you listen to? What's your diet? Not just what you're eating with your mouth. What are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you watching on social media, on all of your entertainment? How are you spending your time? And our wholest version of us, they're observing us, is cheering us on all the time, saying, you're already whole. I'm just witnessing you go through all the versions of not wholeness in order to remember your wholeness. So you can live in that reality now by every choice that you make now. So if you have any questions about any of what I spoke to, please reach out to me. You can DM me. You have access to me here. There's an email I will put at the end of my YouTube. But really, I think the best way to reach out to me is probably on Instagram or TikTok, and reach out to me if you would like to work with me or have any questions about what I speak to. If I were to give you a closing mantra, something to repeat when you start to loop, instead of believing and living in the past belief system of that I am not worthy, I am not safe, or I'm not capable, instead saying, I am whole, because you know there is a version of you that exists right now that is whole. I am whole. I am safe. I am worthy. I am capable. I choose harmony, which is my natural state. I choose love. And when I do that, I am one with all. There's nothing that I need to judge. I can't get it wrong. I've never made a mistake. I am just learning. I'm in my curriculum, and I can always choose now. The power that I have to choose love in every now moment is what can continue to guide me on my path back to my wholeness. Okay, thank you for being here. I have some questions that I want to ask you, that you can kind of ponder as you move forward into the flow of your life. And these three questions are: where in your life are you repeating an old story instead of evolving into your new one? The second question is, what part of your reality feels out of harmony, and how might you reorganize it with love? And which old belief, this is the third question, I am unsafe, I am unworthy, I am not capable, still echoes in you on some level. It can be all different versions of that. They're like the Olympic rings, there's never just one. And we all have a version. If you're human, you have a version of this because it's why we're here, is to experience what we're not so we can remember our wholeness. And what new truth are you ready to embody instead of one of those old ways to believe? My favorite thing to do is to help people recognize their subconscious patterns, the limiting beliefs that they came to believe before they knew better, and to clean it up so they can step into their wholeness. That is what brings me so much joy. So thank you for being here. I really do love and believe in you, and I'm so grateful to be walking this path with you. Okay, ciao for now.